Welcome back to the Coaches Unscripted Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Belcher. With me, as always, is my tag team partner, the dog, Corey Smallwood. How's it going, Corey?
Good. I needed to change my name down in the corner there.
Well, and we'll get into the history of the nickname here in just a few minutes, because with us today is one of the most influential voices in the fitness industry, a respected author, speaker, mentor, consultant who has guided and inspired thousands of coaches and business leaders to raise their standards, sharpen their skills, and maximize their impact. Ladies and gentlemen, Thom Plummer. Welcome in, Thom.
Thanks, guys. Well, that's it. I'm done. That's all I had. I just wanted to hear those kind words and just out of here, guys. So thank you. Very gracious. Well, pleasure to be here, guys.
Yep.
Let's get after this.
And I hope that was fast enough and delivered with the right cadence that it passed the test. I hope it did.
A little better in your speaker school days. I see improvement.
And in saying that, we were talking before we came on, Thom, you've been in this for over 45 years. You look back at the road that you've been down and now at the crossroads from where you've been and where you're going. Where do you see things going in the fitness industry over the next X amount of years?
That's something I kind of think about almost on a daily basis. We just got done teaching a speaker school. We had packed house. It was great. But as usual, I ended up spending about 3 to 4 hours of the school talking business. Most of the folks still are gym owners that show up in these things or somebody related to the fringe of the fitness business. And it was wild to listen to their questions. It's like we've been in business. This isn't an old industry. This industry is still fairly young, but we don't think of it in that terms. But modern fitness only goes back to like 1945, 1950, something like that, depending on which, owner you give credit as being one of the first guys out there. So, and we've got to a point where we've arrived where the point where nothing makes sense anymore, that it's all changing. It's all going to be reinvented. And the questions that people ask me are still the fundamental questions of how to make money. And we've kind of lost that. And that ability to run one of these things, any kind of fitness business, and be profitable is almost a lost art. And it's still there. So where are we? We're at a major transition between what worked and what got us here. And none of those tools, or very few of them, will take us to the next level. Every business gets to a point where what got you here will not get you there. And we're in that transition right now. It's a very exciting time to be here, but I don't think there's a lot of folks out there with the answers right now to take it to that next level.
So what do you see as the fundamental issue that people are missing? What's the one thing or maybe two things that people are really missing?
This could go on. How long is this show? 3 days? Because that was a 3-day question, my friend. That was a 3-day question. On an elementary level, going a little lower, is because of the influencers, because of the cult of coaches, so to speak. The guys become super coaches. They get their followings. They go down that path. And these guys that open gyms, these men and women that run a gym, the most elementary level is I think most coaches have finally, you wake up one day and you realize you can be a coach or you can be a business owner, but you can't be both. It doesn't work. You can be a coach and work in your own business and make $25,000 a month, which 20 years ago was really good money. Now it's pathetic. Now that's not even starter money. You're paying, you might as well go train for somebody and make more money. So that whole, I'm going to live my dream, open a training gym and train all day, it just doesn't work. And now, because of the current economy in the last 5 years to 10 years, depending on how far you want to go back and what's happening today, is you can't make it on $25,000, $30,000 a month in a gym anymore. So there's that final realization that, hey, this is a business, but it took us about 80 years to get there. And if you think about the old bodybuilders, if you think about those guys, that's why those gyms were so bad. You're a bodybuilder and you open a gym, and then you're going to train and you're going to be that guy and show people how to do it. But the business has always sucked because these guys are so into the training that nobody ran the business. And we still have the same thing now. We have these guys that they train 40, 50 hours a week and nobody runs the business. It's amazing how that failed. On a bigger level, reaching much higher viewpoint from this is that we're finally past the point that the training gym based on training methodology is dead. And we're into the age where the next generation of training gyms is going to be demographic based. It's going to be based on a target populations by influence, by ages that are there. And we've not done this. It's default. I asked somebody like, how many of your clients are over 40, training clients? Well, gee, almost all of them. But it's accidental. It's not marketed. And they coach kids in the afternoon, and then they've got adults at 4 o'clock try to come at the same time as the kids are there. And then they try to teach adults in the morning. Then they try to squeeze in a one-on-one in the afternoon. And that whole thing has proven not to work. Now, we're not prepared for that change. That's probably the biggest change in my 40 plus years is that shift away from the death of methodology. If you see Orange Theory, they're not, you don't see them opening now. You see more closing than opening. You don't see that growth like that rage. 45, you don't see that growth. You see those guys starting to fade somewhat. You don't see any of that team training concept is dead. It's gone. It's based on methodology, not demographics. And it's, like we'll do a circuit training. We'll force people into an 1,800-foot box. We'll do 4 sections and they all repeat. That's based on somebody's brain fart of methodology, not anything to do with the fact who's the client, what's the target client. It's real simple, it's really complicated, but most gyms fail because they don't know how to market the gym, because they can't market the gym because they don't know who their target audience is. So now you sign up online and get 5 magic hacks on be able to direct mail your clients or direct message your client. You get into these secrets of the right script to leave on somebody's phone. You get all this, and all that's crap. It's just, we don't even know who our target market is in these gyms anymore because it's shifted. So it's the gym, the business is a complete transition now. And a weird thing is I'm getting the hands moving and ranting a little here, which you guys probably knew that was coming, is we go back to what's working. We always return to what works. And that was a theme I talked about 18 months ago, wrote some articles about it that got published around and stuff. But there was a gym the other day, cardio's dead, long live the barbell. That was on the National News Service. Cardio is dead, long live the barbell. And people are picking up barbells. Again, the gym where I work out, they've got in the squat racks, I'm seeing more people under 30 working out, lifting heavy again than I've seen in the last 20 years. Strength training is back. People are tired of the nonsense. They're tired of the circuit training. They're tired of 6, 8, 10 people in a group running up and down, being like, trying to be 12 years old again. Now, these people are chasing a whole different aspect of training. And the gyms aren't ready for it. The client's ready for it. The gyms are not ready for it. So it's a wonderful time to be in a business. That's why I keep hanging around too long, man. It's just getting interesting. It's hard to get out of this dance right now.
Well, you mentioned something, Thom, that there are a few people out there that are able to take some of these gyms to the next level or to introduce them into these business concepts. And yet we're in this age of everybody's a guru and everybody's got a mastermind and everybody's got a course or, like you said, the magic close to sign people up or this hook or this ad. Where would somebody that, maybe there's somebody here that's going, man, not 20,000 and I want to get to that 60,000 a month mark. Who do they seek out? Because when I got into it, there were like 5 people, right? It was you and Rick Caro and Michael Scott Scudder and Neil Spruce. I mean, you've reached out to those guys and via telegraph because that's how long ago it was. But what would your advice be to them this day and age?
The thing you have to be careful with is a part of these groups, there's some really ethical guys out there running some groups, and there's some people out there not so good. But the problem with if I have 100 people in a group, I'm always forced to teach to the bottom third because they're the ones that just cause all the pain. They're ones that they don't quite get it. They're always frustrated. They need a lot of attention. They have a lot of questions, and they're celebrating when they do $25,000 a month. But if you talk to the best players, which is usually the best 10 to 15% of the group, you just nobody else can keep up. Bill Parisi, I think, is one of the mad geniuses of this industry. It's he's been successful in everything he's ever touched. He's off on his fascia adventure now and his new book and all that. But man, when he had he had over 100 franchises at one time on the speed schools. And I was spending a couple of days with him working on his businesses, and they over 80% of his support resources with his corporate team was spent on the bottom 20% of the franchises, because they just sucked the life out of everybody. And the system that Bill used when he ran his own sports performance centers actually had to be watered down for the guys to be able to do it, because you don't teach the best guys, you always teach the bottom guys. So the guys that break through, you have to kind of go back to what is important, but it's the basic. It's even being able to prioritize your business. Who do you go for help on that? You got to go back and master the basic concepts of it. How does marketing work? Well, it's not sexy, the old stuff, and it's not something that somebody can stand in front of 100 people and say, let's do this, because the problem with a lot of those mentorship groups is every time somebody talks in a meeting, it's a pitch. So there is no pure education anymore. There's no pure help. There's no true guidance anymore. Plus also, this is what I did in my gym, and this is what you should do in your gym. That does not work. And it's just, here's my prices in California, and you're in Iowa. Well, dude, you can't take the prices. Somebody's got to be able to adjust those down. So you either have somebody able to help you adjust them down, or somebody has to teach you the system so you can adjust them yourself. People teach the what, but nobody's teaching the why, the how. Why do we do it this way? What should you learn? How you should go back? And a lot of that's got to be self-directed research. A lot of it's got to be that type of stuff. It's got to go back to, there are no secrets in this business. There's no shortcuts. It's wild when we think about it, but people keep going there. So who's out there, pure education now? Not many. Not many guys out there are throwing out true, really practical education taught toward the top 30 to 40% by the demographics of affluence in the gym business.
So Thom, for being in this for 40 plus years, we'll say 40 plus, and there are no secrets, do you see things being cyclical, or does it just come in waves? If everybody's got a pitch, if everybody's doing the same things, every generation, do you just see a new wave of people kind of crest that wave and have their pitch and have their mentorship and then try to sell it to everybody, and then once they fade out, the next crew comes in? If there's no real education anymore, are these things just happening cyclically? Like even you talk about the single-use methodologies. Is everything just sort of happening in cycles, and we're always just sort of wagon training and never really getting anywhere?
There's a term called deviation simplification, and you start with a basic concept. I taught a workshop last summer at Perform Better, and I started with pictures. I just did the first 8-10 minutes of just pictures, stuff I scrounged up online. And the first one was showing vinyl albums from the 40s and 50s, people listening to them. There were great pictures. And then you show music, how we listen to music progress all the way up today. And so it showed, the album, and then it showed the Walkman, and then it showed the disc player, the portable Discman. It showed all that crap. And then it shows a guy with big headphones listening to his phone. But in 2024, there was a brand new, the hottest bar in Denver for about 6 months was a vinyl club, where you walked in and a guy had a $100,000 turntable and played vinyl albums, and you had a $30 martini. The simplification deviation means we always tear stuff apart and take parts of it out. In fitness, it's not that hard. It's just, because people want to make it theirs, they take parts and not the whole. So you see you saw aerobics break out, and that was the 80s and 90s. Then you see who would be Billy Blanks would be an example of breaking out. Today you have CrossFit and all that type of stuff breaking out. CrossFit was a genius program for community, but then but it's such a narrow slice of fitness because it comes back. So when you're trying to make a name for yourself, you're trying to do it, you never take the holistic part of it. You take a smaller part and you make that yours. So I'm going to teach you marketing, but nobody's going to teach you marketing. They're going to teach you, here's 5 letters you can send your former clients to get them back in an hour, and I'll charge you $99 for it. So the simplification deviation, it means we water it down. But to answer your question directly, it always comes back to what works, because it has to cycle through all the way back. And and we forget that it comes back. Heavy strength training in gyms. If somebody opened a new Gold's Gym today, they'd be crazy successful. 12,000 foot Gold's Gym, just racks. You kind of let Perform Better take it up to the next level, but it would be something that would be crazy. Upscale adult training gym based on people over 40, fitness after 40 is the next big thing, although it's been out there for about 3 years now, 5 years now, because we come back to what works. demographics drove this. And if you think about the early bodybuilding gyms, they were based on demographics. They were based on a certain client by a certain age group with a certain lifestyle. They were totally demographic based. And now gyms are based on just, I'll open up a door and I'm just hope the hell somebody walks through and I'll train everybody. And even the early goals gyms and stuff like that, there were maybe 5 women for every 100 guys in those gyms. And they were very target specific on who they wanted, that lifestyle person. And so that's coming back. We always return, Trey, to what works. But the simplification deviation is we don't want to do this. I got to make it mine. So I take parts of it and I come all the way back here. But eventually all that crap fails and you always come back to the baseline again is what does really work.
So when you look at those things, what are the basics? What are the 1, 3, 5 things that are going to get you there regardless of what you're trying to do, who you are, what your demographic is, what your location is? What are the things that really work?
The one fundamental thing is this, and I hate to break my own rule and try to make this simple, but is if I drew a line across like this, a horizontal line, that's how most guys run their gym. They train 30 hours a week, something like that, even more in their own gyms. So they did marketing, but they did it between sessions. So they handled a staff issue between sessions. So they train their staff between sessions. So they do everything, but they're not good at anything. So the simplest thing, if most guys wanted to make money, is you can't train over 10 hours a week in your own gym or you'll never make any money. You can be a trainer or you can be a business owner that owns a gym. You cannot be both. So if you take that line and turn it up like this and make it a vertical line, what's the biggest priority? One, I've got to bring in enough new leads to feed the pig. I've got to feed this gym, but I don't know my concept because I market to everybody. So if I'm marketing to fitness after 40, I'm marketing to women's only, I'm marketing to a certain demographic for sports performance. I know that. I run target specific marketing. I get enough leads in. I convert them into members, and then everything else flows downhill. That's my biggest priority because if I sell enough new clients each month, the gym never fails. It's just we die because of lack of sales, but we die by lack of sales because we're training clients and nobody had time to do the marketing right. And so it's simple, but if you think about it, every gym owner that tells me they're doing under 30,000, I would bet a really good bottle of wine 1,000 times that these guys are training and they're at least 25 to 30 hours a week in their own gyms. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But we perpetuate that nonsense. We perpetuate that as something that's necessary. Oh, you train. But that's why guys get into it because it is their story. It is their gym. It's their life. I'm going to be a trainer. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to train everybody. Nobody trains like I do. And you bought yourself a $50,000 a year job. You'd be better to go to Starbucks. At least you get stock options. It's crazy. It's crazy what we do to ourselves. So that's the biggest thing is priority. They don't even know how to work in their own gym. They don't know how to plan their day. Staff development, dude. Think about that for a second. Everybody just moans about staff, but that's simple. We don't pay enough, and then we don't train the people we get. Yeah, we cheap out because we don't make any money. So we try to pay trainers $20 an hour. In most markets now, trainers are somewhere between $30 to $50 an hour because you got to pay your trainers more than you pay anybody else pays them because you want the best and you want to keep the best. But we can't do that because we don't get enough members. And our trainers are there, most of us, just to back us up because I'm training 50 hours a week myself.
Yeah, they get into that cycle of I don't have enough leads, therefore I can't afford somebody to help me. Therefore, I have to train all the clients myself, and I don't have enough time to market, so I'm not getting enough leads. So it's that spiral. How would you take somebody that's in that spiral and teach them how to turn the spiral in the opposite direction? So they spend more time marketing, they get more leads, more members, they can hire more people, develop better staff. And so it's a positive cycle versus a negative cycle.
Well, the transition point has to be when you're sitting on the toilet posting your post today, thinking that's marketing. So that's got to be the low point of your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to hit rock bottom.
That post is good. Oh, man. Geez, I hope Mrs. Johnson's late because I'm not finished posting or pooping. So I'm sitting here going, yeah. So that, if I'm assuming that's the low day of your life, it's not hard to go to the best day. The best thing is to set a goal. And realistically, we're sitting here right at the 1st of May. So give yourself 90 days. So 1st of August, 1st of September at the latest. Okay, you're going to be 10 hours or less. That's it. So get a decent sidekick, start to bring people in, but your primary marketing when you get up in the morning is bringing in new leads, mastering marketing. And we make that so freaking hard if you think about that. That's just, dude, testimonials. If I see another guy in his own ads on Facebook or Instagram, it's like, here's a guy, and it's like he's working out in his own gym and going, come to my gym. Come to my gym, and all this is like, dude, just be a stripper. If you need the attention that bad, just shouldn't be in your own ads. If you've helped somebody, then share that. Let your clients talk for you. But nobody wants to do that because it's old school. It's not sexy anymore, except when you turn on any national marketing campaign, be it social media, be it old school TV, be it anything. They're all slice of life, as they call it. Almost all of them are testimonial based. And it's just because it's worked. It's not what I say. It's about all the clients I've said, what they say about me. But that's not sexy, so nobody teaches it. It's not something that's going to make me want to use your marketing company because you've got the secrets. Because if I learn to do that and learn to shoot those, I don't need the marketing company. I can do it myself. But so, the basics, if you fire yourself from your own gym, give yourself 90 days to get down to 10 hours or less. And then you spend all time on just getting new leads in, selling them, getting referrals in, selling them, creating the experience, training your staff so the experience is good, creating something there. But that's where it works. But again, you don't understand the concept. That goes back to the first point, is the next big thing is going to be something that's been out for a number of years now, is the shift from methodology-based to demographics. And we become specialists, in other words, but we're specialists. Target-specific marketing is based on that demographic. If I know that, I'm only training 10 hours or less a week in my own gym. And for most guys, I'm a big believer, as you guys know, in paid trials, like a 6-week paid trial, because I want to prove that I can do this when you come in. I want you to feel comfortable, because most of our clients haven't been in gyms for years. They don't need specials or 50% off if you're chasing the higher level client. But based on that, I need about 12 of those a week or a month. I need about 8 new sales, and the average of those 8 sales should be north of 300. If I do that for most training gyms, I do that for 18 months to 2 years. That turns out to be somewhere between a $75,000 to $100,000 a month gym. It's all that simple. This business is simple. We make it hard because we got too many people trying to sell secrets, and not enough people trying to run these businesses what they are. They're just small, independent businesses. But nobody runs them because we're too busy making coffee instead of running the store.
Now, this is sort of a shift away, but you talk about your 90 days, and I've heard Corey tell the 90-day rule. You guys, your history is extensive, and I've talked about Corey and Core Dog and the nickname, and you gave him that nickname, and I want you guys to tell a little bit about your history and your story together, and I just want to sit back and listen and enjoy.
Yeah, I got into, I met Thom when I got my first job as a manager, and actually I was the assistant manager. 2 weeks in, the manager quits. The owner of the gym goes, I don't know how to run this thing. We got to find somebody to learn from. And I think Thom was doing a workshop in New Jersey. And so the owner of the gym and I drove up, and that was it. Like, being in to see Thom in person speak and present, I was like all in. And mind you, this is pre-social media. You're not being bombarded. You had to find the right person to help educate you. And so from there, I went to every conference, from the sales schools to the 3-day business schools, you name it. I went to so many of them. Then there was one in Atlanta. While there, Thom pulled me out of the workshop, was doing the sales bit, and offered me a job to work for the company, and moved from Atlanta out to California, and that was it. That's where it started.
And the Core Dog became because he was Road Dog, because we probably our busiest years, we did this for over 20 years, was doing somewhere between 22 to 30 workshops a year. So we were just getting into the ability to fill it through social media, through emails, through all that type of stuff was just coming in. So we had old school staff of 15, 16 people at our peak. But we'd go every like twice a month. There would be a major seminar, and then off weeks would be sales seminars or something. And we just traveled probably 30 weeks a year. That's probably what I traveled for a couple decades, 40 weeks a year back when I started. So Corey was the road dog because he's the guy that went out and ran the shows and did that. And he was in California, and we had another guy named Terry that was working, and we reformed the company, moved everybody back east. Those guys worked with me for a while, and then they both went out to start their own businesses. My daughter took over the company, and off we go. And the road dog's been hanging around ever since. It's really kind of hard to get rid of, actually. He's kind of a pain in the ass, but he still shows up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ratted,
he drug my ass into another podcast. Yeah, here I am on another podcast.
Yeah. I always say that I had for 20 weeks a year, I would sit next to Thom on an airplane, and then when we were in the office, our offices were right next to each other, and so I got the ability to listen to the best in the business for years and years and years on end, and I couldn't absorb enough. I mean, it was just sponge. And then being able to apply that to other gyms around the U.S., consulting with them, and then opening my own gym, being successful there, and now doing more consulting and coaching as well. It's just like I didn't have a better teacher. It was like, having the best at your side all the time, right? I didn't need to Google anything. I could just Thom something, be like, hey, what about this? And Thom was always there to give the great advice.
And that goes back to your question earlier, Trey, is this like what's going on? Kind of both of you guys were asking really the question, who's kind of next? So you've got Corey, you've got Dan Kleckner, Brendan Stapleton, guys coming up that are just, I mean, they're killing it. Brendan has got a 1,900-foot gym, and he did 1.8 million last year, this thing. So you got a whole generation of guys that know how to do it, but they're also, Corey's numbers in his gym are pretty outstanding. Kleckner was $1 million guy in his gyms, but these guys now, they've learned that we don't go out and say, here's what I did in my gyms. You go out and say, based on the situation in your gym, here's what you might think about. And that's the whole skill set that you have to go forward. So, but yeah, a lot of guys came through those tours over the years. A lot of guys still out there that grew up in those tours in our workshops, so to speak. And year after year after year, man, it's a long time.
And that's the thing, too, that we just talked with Chris Poyer about why it's important to go to in-person learning. In-person education is the networking and the stuff. But there are stories that you have there that you just don't tell. And after 20 years with Thom, like I remember being at a business school and there was a guy named Blender Boy, and we were on one side of the pool. Blender Boy came out in a robe, dove into the pool, came out on the other side, stood behind his booth. That was, there's so many stories that come from these events that you get the knowledge, but you also get all of that networking and camaraderie and the social aspect of it that Thom was a master at in all of the NFBA workshops. If anybody's been to one,
Trey, we did one in Providence, and that was not too many years ago. It was probably just pre-virus. And we're up there all day. You're there for a couple of days. We had maybe 120, 130 people in the workshop. It was a good attendance. The lobby, the bar was down in the basement, kind of subterranean. You popped out on the side and went down the hill. It was up on the hill, just up at the upper levels of Providence. Really cool hotel place to be. So bar closes, and we grab a bunch of wine. We're sitting up there. There's 18 people, 20 people sitting around some kind of big-ass Viking table. Looks like, you're waiting for the Thor to show up, and you're like this big. The table's like this thick and wide. It's in this hotel right off the side of the lobby. All these guys are sitting around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We probably bought an extra case and a half of wine or something. The guy next to me, he was laughing so hard, and he leans in and he finally goes, he says, I've learned more from these guys sitting at the table than I probably learned about my business in the last 10 years. Because they were exchanging stories, they were making, and a lot of those guys are still friends. A lot of those guys, a lot of gym owners, they don't they're isolated. They don't have people to talk to. You get so locked into your business. And even if you're in a mentorship group or something like that, you have a hard time finding somebody to talk to that, there's just so many of you that you don't have that. So, but to sit and stay up after hours and to be able to talk and ask the questions that you're kind of afraid to ask during the light of day, so to speak. These guys, that's something we tried to do with my workshop, still tried to keep people that, get them out afterwards. Yeah, the speaker school, we had 17 people the last time. We actually oversold by one. We always take one extra because somebody never shows. All 17 showed up this time, so it was kind of crazy. But you were sitting there, out of 17 people, 15 of them were sitting up in the lobby of the hotel that night. We just came over afterwards there. So that's where people are talking. That again, with live seminars, with this online stuff, you don't have that ability to be heard. You don't have that ability to connect. Again, that's what Perform Better does so well with their summits. Going back to that, as you get people out, you can talk, you can network again, you can be part of that. Kind of a lost art. Trey and I, we've set up a few times and had a couple late night talks about everything, and that's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to go.
And those things are so important, and that really is where the connections and the learning and the camaraderie is built. And when we don't have those things, that's why we're doing what we're doing here, is so we can keep those connections, and so we can check in with our friends, and so we can learn and bounce ideas off of each other, and we tell stories and enjoy those connections. But there's also a lot of gold that's in this conversation. And I always show my notepad, that are the notes that I've taken already. And this is our way of staying in connection with people, and staying involved, and staying, in the know in the interim between times where we can get together and be able to sit around and have a drink and grab a bottle or a case of wine and enjoy it until, God knows when in the morning.
That's not completely dead. I mean, that social hour is still there for the summits. We're doing another speaker school in September, I think it is, 18th through the 20th, I believe it is, back in Providence. But Chris wants to do another 2-day business workshop in the fall. And so I think we're looking at that. We might do that in Stanford. So I'm in. I was out. This will be the 6th or 7th time I've retired and unretired, I guess. But back to the last speaker school, again, I spent 3 to 4 hours of that school stretching out the day, answering business questions. And these are some of the best and brightest that go to the speaker schools. You're chasing something if you're going to that school. You're chasing another level of your own career. But here's guys that run good gyms, and they're asking me, so I've got slides up and I'm pulling out, stuff that I send from people when we talk online, so they have the slides in front of them. I've got those pulled up. They're asking questions that they're the elements, the basics of how this business works, the basic pricing structure, a basic concept of who is this gym for? And again, almost everybody said, this is my gym, this is how I do it, just copy it. It does not work. Will never work, because every market is so different. I've got guys that have multiple gyms in the same region, and they're running 3 different business plans because the demographics that they chase are so different in all 3 markets. And it's just you've got to be able to get down to that where, do you understand your business? Do you understand that? Do you have a chance to network? I'm glad to see you guys do this and that network, something like that. Yeah. And there's some guys will do 6 hours of lecture. You guys can give it away free. The gym business in 6 easy lessons. Yeah, that'll be fun.
That's right.
There'll have to be some wine involved in that, guys. I'm telling you that.
I was thinking the amount of mileage I put on doesn't come close to the mileage you've put on in airplanes. But if you had to guess, miles on an airplane or ounces of wine consumed, which is greater? What's the over/under on that one?
Well, I have a little over 3.5 million actually in the air flying miles. So not program miles. Those program miles must be, oh my God, over the years, those would be tens of millions for those over the decades I've had. But actual flight miles sitting in an airplane, about a little over 3.5 million miles. A couple million with Delta and about 1.5 million with United back in the day. And then there was Northwest and a few other strange ones on the transfer. So 3.5 million ounces of wine, that would be I don't know, man. Could be a comparison.
Might be close.
Yeah, I'd have to work it out by the bottle, but yeah, it's probably pretty close. Again, that's part of the experience that I think we also lose is that, and when the virus hit, we think about that. We look back and it's like, we're so glad it's done, but it forced us into a complete different way of running this industry. And it's just now coming back. I mean, we're, virus plus really 3 now. And so if you're looking at 3 years past that, like I was talking to Chris at Perform Better, they're expecting the Providence Summit to be really close to pre-summit, pre-virus numbers, which would be, I think they probably 1,200 people. Mm-hmm. But people are out, they're back, but they miss that. Trey, back to your stuff. People miss that ability to interact. And there's only so much you can do online. I take online stuff all the time. I buy photography courses and writing courses and do all this online. I watch the videos, and you're just like, man, I wish I could ask somebody a question. You just didn't understand that. What did he mean by that? Or what was she talking about when she was talking about that? And I'm a fan of it, and I do it, and I'm all over social media. I've still got stuff. I follow that. I still market there when I do market and all that type of stuff, but it's not the same as having, you're teaching in front of 120, 30 people in the room. You've got that energy. You got the questions on the break, and people are up and they go like, oh my God, I want to answer this question now. And I'm like, yes, guys, God, they follow you into the bathroom. You're sitting on the toilet on the break and somebody's yelling through the door. And I used to think, oh man, but that's how passionate people are about learning. They don't even know where they are. They're just like, I got to get this question out. And we don't do that anymore. And that's the ability to ask questions and be heard. That's kind of a lost art. And I don't see the mentorships do that as well as I would like them to. That ability to purely educate people without an agenda, without that secondary resource. You're going to make a lot of money anyway. You don't have to necessarily always have a hidden hook behind everything you do.
And that's a lot about what this is, Thom. And we're recording, but we're not live. Doesn't have to be a show. This is just a conversation amongst the 3 of us. And we ask questions and we just want to hear what you have to say. And then we just keep the conversation going. And we've had people that have apologized for being long-winded. And we've had people apologize for taking up time. And I said, that's what this is about. You talk as long as you want to talk. I can clean up or bleep anything or edit out anything that I need to do to protect whatever, but this is just a conversation amongst the 3 of us that will hopefully help other people and hopefully give people actionable items, but also uplift people and help people guide themselves or learn about their business or figure out one little piece that may help make their day better. And that's all this is, man. It's just a way to connect and share ideas and just be together. That's all it is, man. It's just simple.
Well, you guys are going to have to do a live one and take questions, man. You're going to have the ability to people reach out to you, dude. That could be fun.
Oh, absolutely.
I was thinking we should do a series with Thom where we just throw out a name and then Thom has to tell a story and then we'll derive some business application from it. So it'd be like Louis Ferrigno, and then Thom will have a story, or Pete Grymkowski, and boom, he'll have a story, and then Mike Katz, boom, Thom's got a story, and we'll derive some business.
Well, I can do all 3 of those right now if you want.
No doubt. I love you. Your Pete Grymkowski story is one of the best. That is just, I never get tired of hearing that one.
Is that a setup now that I'm supposed to kind of go into that? Yeah.
And go.
And so he is probably one of the hidden geniuses in the industry. He never got credit for the talent he brought to that. The story is Joe Gold sold that original location, but he sold his name. Back then, Joe didn't even really, I don't think, understood he sold his name. And so he just didn't sell Gold's the Gym. He sold Gold's Gym, the name. And there was a short-term buyer that bought it from after Joe. And then it didn't do anything. It was horrible. And then Pete was at almost his peak as a bodybuilder. And even that, he was 5'10", about 300 pounds, solid stone. He was, man, back in the day, if he was the guy, but living in his car. in Santa Monica. He got together a couple of guys interested that had some money and put together a buyer's group and took over Gold's. And he took this thing from that into reselling it, a decade later. But he made Gold's Gym. Pete's, his energy, his passion, his love for the gym, not just bodybuilding, but just for the whole concept of the gym. And he was legendary. But I didn't know the guy until I was doing, it was really my first workshop I did when I left ASF. I was their VP of marketing. So the brothers that owned the Gold's Gym Classic, which was the number one bodybuilding show outside of California, they had it in Niagara Falls, of all places. And so they said, we're doing the show this year. We're going to invite 20, 30 owners and come up and teach a workshop the day before. And I'm like, sure, that was great. So I'm in there, and they got like maybe 25 guys in here, and the whole back row is Gold's Gym corporate. Pete, coats and ties, his whole corporate team standing against the back wall. And it's like very intimidating because Pete is Pete, and I'm looking at and I'm like, okay, I wonder how this is going to go today. So I'm talking, and they never left and they never sat down. And he came up afterwards, and he was so big, but he was so soft spoken. He goes, hey, you come and have a drink with me. I'm like, yes, sir. So they had a suite, the whole top of this hotel they took over, and you could look down out over across to the Canadian side and all this, and it was the guys and bodybuilders were coming through, and their vendors and all this type of, they had food and bar set up. And so we're up there about 7, everybody went to dinner, and Pete goes, you stay. I'm like, sure. So he orders some food, we're sitting there, and then about 9 o'clock, we're the only guys left in the suite. Everybody's out. And he drank 2 chairs. We're setting up and looking out over this. He breaks out a bottle of really nice scotch. And we were still sitting in those chairs at 5 o'clock the next morning. When people were getting up to get ready for the day, we were still sitting in the chairs. And I had to teach all day. I had another whole day of the workshop I had to teach. And listening to Pete, the lesson from him was, man, the guy he's one of those guys that knew what he wanted. Even though he didn't have money, he had no resources, he had nothing, but he had this vision. And he had this vision of what Gold's was going to become, how big it was going to be. It was the biggest chain in the world at one time. Everything this guy imagined, he got done. And people put him down as like he's just a goofy bodybuilder, and a lot of people don't remember him anymore. And the guy was a genius. He was absolutely just legendary in the fact of his vision. I get those guys cornered, man. I ask a million questions like, okay, how'd that happen? Where'd you do that? Teach me that. I want to know that. Then he was like, okay, well, how would you see a gym running these days? I'm like, I got a few ideas on that too. Let's go, brother. But 5 times I hung out with Pete. All 5 times I saw the sun come up, because that's just how but he was like a lot of guys that era. I don't think he had a lot of guys to talk to. So I was just that guy that would sit up with them, be stupid, and drink all night with them. But he would also talk about things at such a deep level that we became friends over time. I had a huge amount of respect for him. And but that's, he was just, he was one of a kind guy, but just a little socially anxious, which is pretty crazy. I found him hiding behind a tree in the lobby of a hotel in San Diego once. And I came down, and Pete was standing behind a ficus tree, leaning like this in his shorts. And like, Pete, you okay? And he goes, I'm supposed to go to my birthday party, but I don't know where it is. And I'm like, dude, it's your birthday? Yeah. And he says, I'm lost. And he didn't have his phone, didn't know really where he was going. And so I took him out with our group, and he stayed up, and again, he was up all night partying and hanging out with some people. And he was that type of guy where once he found you and he liked you, he was good, with you and stuff like that. But he wasn't comfortable with a lot of other people either. So fascinating guy, fascinating genius in many ways.
It's funny. We talk about the staying up together and keeping the social part of it going. And we've had Rob and Aaron on a couple months ago, and I'm always going to stay at the party until the party's over. Last man standing, drinks or not, I'm in, because that's where the real stories are told and the real connections are made. And that's the thing that I always try to get across to people is you got to stay in it and just go be in the moment, be present with the people that you're around, because you're inevitably going to learn something from them. And that's going to be the biggest takeaway that you will leave with that weekend, is something in the evenings.
But you got to create that. Whoever's leading that group has to create it. God, I performed better or not. This would have been a few years ago, talking to a mentor guy at the time. That's something we were talking about that, because a lot of guys do come to our tour. That we were known for that. I made that happen. That was by intent. because I want people to be comfortable enough to have that part of, yes, somebody's going to listen to you. Yeah, I'll answer your questions at 2 a.m. You're here. Yeah, it's what you know. Good. And he didn't believe that was right because he's the type of guy that ran his groups all day. And then at 6 o'clock, they were done. He went home. That was it. He didn't want to socialize with them. He says, I gave them everything they paid for during the day, and I don't need to hang out with them at night. I don't want to spend money on them and all that. And I'm like, this is so wrong on so many levels. You know, people, they're paying for your time. You gotta be that person. You got to be that person that's there to answer these questions. Questions just aren't. You know, you're going to spend a weekend traveling. Dude, you paid for the weekend. Just here, let me buy you a glass of wine. Dude, just thank you. You could have been anywhere in the world this weekend. You're sitting in my workshop. Man, thank you. You know, yeah, so what? It's going to cost me a couple bottles of wine at 2 o'clock in the morning? Big deal. But you have to do it by intent. And I don't see people creating that anymore. I'm sure there are guys out there that do it. Tim Lyons does that well with his group. He creates that environment after hours where people can linger. He does an exceptional job with that, I think, making people feel comfortable beyond the scope of the meeting. But it's not common, something you see often. It's not something that you see. And it's sad because that's what makes a lot of these groups work well. That's Chicago performed better when they were down, not out in Rosemont, but they were actually downtown on the lake. Some of the groups down there, man, they'd be out till 3 o'clock in the morning to go into local pubs and hanging out up there, just doing that. And a lot of the mentors at that time would lead groups out and just take them to these, just crazy places. And then in the last 4 or 5 years I've been there, nobody does that anymore. It's just completely, it's just like they've separated themselves from the people that actually go. And it's just like, no, guys, I taught my stuff today. I'm done. And it's not right. It's so many ways. Greg Rose from TPI is probably one of the most patient human beings I've ever seen when it comes to that. I tell a story where we were teaching speakers to go together in Providence. He just came from Europe. He'd been over there 3 weeks. And I thought, how many workshops? The guy was exhausted. He shows up for this. So we go 3 days, these speaker schools. And I'm like, dude, just go to bed. I'll teach this. But it was his group, and he wanted to be there, and he was part of it. The last day, we're heading out. And I'm like, come on, man, let's get some dinner. I'll buy you a drink. He doesn't drink much. I'm like, you're going to have a drink. He goes, yes, I will. He said, I'll have a drink. He was so tired. And one of the guys in the workshop comes to me and says, hey, man, he says, my guys love you, Greg. He says, would you mind showing us let me record a couple of stretches and stuff I can show my guys? And I'm looking at this guy going, dude, you got to go away. He's barely standing up. And Greg goes, sure. So here's he on the floor, 20 minutes rolling around with this guy. I'm filming it for him and doing stretches. And Greg's, slapped him on the shoulder and thanks. And he walked away. And it was one of the most graceful things I've ever seen a speaker do. And so all new speakers like that is that thing you can learn. First of all, is be graceful. Be grateful and graceful, meaning graceful, meaning that you're going to linger that extra step. No matter how tired you are, just be graceful. Thank you. That's all it takes. Yeah. Again, lost arts.
Yeah. And you would do it 20, 30 weeks a year. I mean, that's the thing that most people go to a workshop and it's 1, 2, maybe 3 times a year they'll get out and they'll do that and stay up until 2 in the morning. We would do it for 30 weekends. I would go home. I remember leaving, getting off the airplane. Thom and I would talk like crazy going out, and it was a quiet flight going back. And I get home, and the last thing that I wanted to do was talk. The last thing I wanted to do was have a drink. The last thing I would be like peanut butter and jelly and milk, because we ate great when we were out. Like, that was it for me. I was like, I need to decompress for a couple of days. And I don't think people realize the amount of energy that you put out to your audience, to your attendees each and every time, each and every show without fail. It's commendable.
It's the responsibility. If people trust you with their money, you have to respect that. And if people trust you with their brain, meaning they're coming to learn on how to do the business, you have to respect that as well. So the time is, it's just, again, I say it too many times, but you could be anywhere in the world. You're going to sit in my workshop for 2 days? Yeah, come on, dude, just let's go. Yeah, That's the least I can do is, what, you want to stay up and ask a question for a while? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll get it done. And people, they come back with these stories, hey, yeah, we stayed up and we met 20 people at 2:00 in the morning. I like them to have those stupid old school war stories where they can share those. And, oh my God, I stayed up to 2:00. I haven't done that in years. And, yeah, okay, purist, that's a good thing too. And, but it's, even that in some ways is something that I hate to see lost in the industry. I hope as we move back into live workshops again and move back into hands-on, that people can and will do that again. And I hope the younger generation of folks coming in kind of regain that fact that it's a simple thing. Guys, thank you for being here. If I can buy you a drink tonight, I'll meet you in the bar at 9:00 and come on down. You buy a round or two. And if you're on a budget, you buy the first round and let people have an opportunity to come down and just like, hey, so what'd you stumble on today? Hey, I was thinking about this. It's just one of the things I laugh about is there are some things that you kind of go, okay, that was cool. I've kind of seen it all, but there's things like that. And we were in Belfast, and I'm sitting at the oldest pub in Belfast, and they don't close. Most people don't realize that they just don't close. So I'm sitting there, and a guy wants to talk about his pricing structure for a gym in a village of about 800 people, and he's got a gym and a 2-car garage. And I'm like, I'm on it. So we get some weird paper. It was like the back of a menu thing from the bartender. And so I got all this sketched out and everything like this. And he's making notes. I mean, it's 3:00 in the morning in a pub in Belfast. And he sent me a picture about 6 months later, and he's got the thing framed behind his desk. And he was like this because he just made the most money he'd ever made in his whole time he had this little gym. And I'm like, that is so cool. It was so much fun. Stuff like that kind of validates the fact that sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's good. But sometimes, it gets crazy too, and that's always a good thing too. We'll save those stories for next time.
Well, we definitely plan on there being a next time, so go ahead and pencil it into your schedule somewhere. You just tell us when, and we'll be down for it. Now, a couple things, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this because I've talked about this a couple times on a couple earlier shows. So once I gave a presentation, and I called you and I said, Thom, here's my presentation. I want you to rip this thing apart, make me better. And fast forward about 4 months, and I come to speaker school, and he says, Thom's standing in the front of the room, and he says, okay, now I'm going to give you an example of what not to do. And he clicks it on, and it's me in my face shooting right up my nose, and this says, Trey, this is what not to do. And I said, well, damn.
And you still use orange. That wall behind you, your whole slide pack was orange.
Whole thing. And he was like this.
Yeah. Okay. And he's like small like this with the camera right, like the phone right here, like looking up his nose. And the material, it's just like orange slides, bullet points, and bullet points. And that was a good example of how not to do it. That was actually brilliant.
And, the funny part is, and I love it. The fact that I have contributed to speaker school in perpetuity is something that I wear as a huge badge of honor, because the speaker school after we were, a friend of ours sends me a text and says, hey, I just saw you at speaker school. And I said, you're welcome. I hope you learned a lot from this.
Yep. That's where it all started. That's where Trey and I met at speaker school. That's where we started. The brainchild of this ever came about. And, 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah. It's funny, especially we're here today. Yesterday, we had Chris Poirier on. And so much of this did start at speaker school. And then riding out to Natalie's in Chris's car, it was the four of us. And we hadn't discussed the idea of a podcast or anything like that. We had just met. But just that environment, those connections, whether it was in the actual class, driving to lunch, driving back from lunch, or the evenings after the fact, created so much of what is happening right now. And I think that is a testament to everything that we've talked about the connections, the networking, the friendships, learning, the business, all those things manifest into what we've got here. So I appreciate everything that you've done, Thom.
Thank you so much. Well, there's got to be a point here where we do wrap this up. So may I throw one last tidbit out for our listeners?
Please do.
No thought?
Let me leave you with one more thing, as the speaker school says. I still obviously talk to a lot of people, still stay, catching up with what's going on. I see it more common now than I used to probably 10 years ago. I think it's that two factors. One, it's isolation, that people are so locked into their own world, they don't get out. So if anybody's listening to this far into this nonsense with the three of us into this is go somewhere, and go not to necessarily learn like a Perform Better Summit. You're going to learn a lot, but go to shake hands, meet people, have a cup of coffee with somebody you don't know, stand at the cocktail parties and just introduce yourself to everybody and ask them what they do and where they live and what kind of business they have, and work on that, getting away from your reliance on social media as your network and family versus actually real live human beings. Get involved again. Go do something. Go to live workshops as often as you can because of that reason. And the second thing, last thing is, I'm still just kind of shocked at how few people know what the hell they're trying to do in this business. That they don't know what they're trying to accomplish, what it means. I talked to a guy the other day, and he's successful. He's doing some really nice numbers, probably doing $60K a month. The guy is fairly young, in his 30s, but he has no idea what the hell where he's going with this. It's like, okay, dude, what's this mean in 10 years? What's your plan? What's your exit strategy? How do you translate this into personal wealth? How do you protect your family with this? How do you do all these type of things? And we're good at getting in. We're not good at getting out. And people, because of the isolation, I don't think people are very good at expressing what they really want, even to their spouses. That business has got to mean something. It's got to make a difference. It's got to create something for you. It's got to create something for your family. And people, because they don't know that, don't know how to run these things. And I think we've lost that. What the hell do you want? And if I probably had to give you, Corey, back to your numbers thing between ounces and miles, I'd say the most often asked question I've ever had after 6 o'clock in the evening is, the thing is, it's like me asking, like, what the hell do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you want? And that's when the answers come, because they do, but they've never expressed it. And that whole thing of trying to run these businesses, we do the right thing. These are good businesses. We help people. We don't get paid for it well enough usually. We don't know what to do with the money. We don't know how to get out. We don't know how to end it. We don't know how to market it anymore. I'm not even sure many of us even know what our clients are. So, what are you trying to get done in these things? That's a good place to start. What the hell am I really trying to do? If I'm going to open a business, what's it mean? And it just... if you can answer that question, you're probably way further ahead than most of the people in this industry.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to sum it up, and come back for part 2 with Thom Plummer, and we answer all these questions. So,
yeah. And then keep checking the Perform Better calendar, because the speaker school and the fall business workshop will be posted at some time. And I just talked to Chris just a week and a half ago, so they're neither one are even up yet. They're trying to get hotels lined up in Stanford and all that, but I think we're there. It's like, again, one more shot this year. Who knows? I say that every year until I just don't. So, but we'll see. But yeah, I'll keep you guys informed, and I hope you guys can get that out to your listeners as well.
Absolutely. And you said September 18th through the 20th?
I believe that's the dates for the speaker school. And then the fall show has not yet been set. It's most likely one of our best months for workshops is usually early November. So I know that's far out, but for this type of thing. But again, I think we're going to go back to the hotel. One of our favorite hotels is in Stamford, Connecticut. And that's right up from Capitol Grill. It's very accessible for people in that region to get to. And they tolerate our late night stupidity very well. But Chris already has a whole bunch of vendors. The vendors are back together. The band's back together, Corey. So
nice.
And this type of stuff. So yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to this. I've already probably written half of it, trying to figure out the first generation of it, trying to come up with something that's to get back to like how to do this business, how to make some money, how to run this right. And peer education still lives. I hope we can do it one more time.
Perfect. Well, we thank you, Thom, for coming on and doing this. And it's always great to see you and to talk and to sharing these ideas. Anytime you are welcome here. So be ready on September 18th through the 20th for Speaker School. It is one of the best, and everybody in the industry will tell you it is probably the best course you will ever take. And you can see me there, whether I'm there in person or not, but you will check me out for what not to do.
I will keep those slides in just for that. So thank you, guys.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for thinking of me. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, guys. We thank you for joining us on the Coaches Unscripted podcast. We hope today's stories have inspired and empowered you. Please connect with us on Instagram at Coaches Unscripted Podcast. Give us a like, follow, comment, share to continue the conversation. Stay updated for future episodes. Follow Thom Plummer at Thomas_Plummer_. Thank you, Thom, again. You are the best. For Thom Plummer, Corey Smallwood, I'm Trey Belcher. Keep coaching from the heart and building strong communities.